from Stephen Mary's. Praying one day Big Red will win the NIT.
Ham is the water of meats.
Ham the water of meats.
Ham is the water of meats.
No more need for
Ham is the
bacon.
water of meats. Ham is the water of meats. Ham is the water of meats.
Ham the water of meats.
Ham is the water of meats.
Is that my team? Is my team? Is that my team?
No, that's Manchester City. You're a Man U fan, remember? They lost on, or did they win? I don't remember. They played on Friday.
Oh, no, they tied because you won money.
Yeah,
because of a
won
stupid
money.
Tie.
Jack Mitchell's very confused.
I get my Manchesters all mixed
Oh,
up.
yeah, I know how it goes.
Yeah, I guess I did.
I'm just so bitter hearing people have sports they care about on TV. I'm bitter. I'm angsty. I'm jealous.
Yeah, you know, John, he cares deeply about the Premier League.
I care deeply about Team Chevy. It's
I know,
but
great
organization
right now. But what is on right now?
Well, I got NASCAR on right now too. This is
His
great.
favorite. You got what you like. You got what you like.
And the Jack Mitchell reverse pyramid of sports continues.
Yep, pretty much exactly. They're going to bring them all back. Everyone will be just a little bit better than the last one, but still we're not at a point where I'm real super interested.
I mean, really, do you want Nebraska ball back right now? All they do is they kick you in the nuts all the time. So
at least they might get a game in with the player that they got before they left. I mean, I'm used to one season and done, not 1 month and done.
Yeah, that was a tough look for I'm getting annoyed now when players leave because theoretically it could prove you right about, because you're still whining about Tim Miles like you want Miles brought back or something. I have no idea what you're arguing for with Nebraska.
I don't know what opinion you just attributed to me, but I haven't said anything like that anytime recently, but okay. I was slower. I mean, this is really digging up old skeletons now, but yes, did not want him fired nearly as much as most of the average fans did, but this is not something I've really emphasized recently.
Yeah, I mean, at least Miles kept his players around longer than like a month.
Except for Andrew White, of course.
Well, Andrew White,
a year.
He lasted a year. I mean, Kobe King had about as much impact on the history of Nebraska ball as Shang Ping. There was nothing. It was nothing. I feel for Jack. He would have been in the rotation.
It makes me feel guilty for feeling upset about Andrew White. At least we got him for some games.
By the way, did anyone check to see if the 1011 website had any editorial comments about Kobe King?
I don't know.
You remember this one, Jack, when the big controversy when Andrew White left, someone used in the URL on the 1011 the actual URL address, it said that bleeper Andrew White.
Wow, that's a deep cut. No, I have the
screenshot.
Yeah.
I have the screenshot. It is legit. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kobe didn't get quite that much. Well, it was 1 week ago that we found out that the governor was going to lift some of the restrictions. We're now to phase 3 of the structured reopening. Today is that phase 3, and now there are restaurants that can go to 100% of capacity. Yesterday, for Father's Day, the family, we went out for a brunch at a place called Piedmont Bistro, which I know Jack is familiar with. But they have the tables like spread out. I mean, there's a lot of room in there, which is actually refreshing because you know how you usually walk into restaurants,
a breakfast place especially,
and you're like squeezing in between. Excuse me, can you move in so I can move my chair? You didn't have any of those issues, so I'll be curious to see how some restaurants react to all of this. But they now have the ability to go back to where they were before the shutdown.
And then I think one of the interesting things like today, I hadn't gone out to eat anywhere, and we were desperate to get out of the house today with my kids. And so I ran them over to Culver's, and I was like, why don't we just go in and, just to kill some time and not be home. And so we did. But they still have like almost half their tables that you can't sit in. So it'll be interesting to see how many restaurants really try and go to 100% capacity. Because in most cases, if you're still trying to space and distance, you can't go to 100% capacity. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to hear throughout the next few days how many of them actually do end up feeling like they used to. Now, judging from the cars, John, still at the Texas Roadhouse in Southeast Lincoln, they've got to be close. I mean, they had to be close to 100% last week. Man, does Lincoln love the Texas Roadhouse?
Are you sure? Are you sure these weren't folks who were waiting in line for mulch at the Lowe's?
It could be, because that place is busy too. But they park alongside of the road there. It's been since that place opened, and so I don't know. I'll be interested to hear from people what their experiences are when they go out to eat, and if you really do have restaurants that are at 100%. My guess, guys, is that there may be some, but it's still going to kind of feel the same as it did for people who have gone out, which I haven't, other than that one little thing.
Jack, speaking of capacity, and I almost feel bad for even bringing this up, but I'm going to anyway. The Trump rally this weekend, should there be any takeaway for sports? And look, like all jokes about the K-pop stands and trolling and whatever, that only 6,000 people showed up because, I mean, his fan base, obviously we know, is very, very strong. And so I was thinking about it this morning, and I was trying to figure out if there could be a correlation between sports fan bases and Trump's fan base, and that he wasn't able to fill up that arena, even though I think everyone thought he would.
Yeah, I don't know, and I do think there were a lot of things that contributed to the fact that it wasn't full, but I think that's certainly part of it, is people even who normally would want to go not wanting to right now. And so, yeah, I think, but I mean, it depends on the part of the country that you're talking about. It's dependent on the sport. It'll depend on a whole lot of things in terms of trying to compare the kind of the appetite to go see something like that live. What I do think, though, Josh, sports in it is, and I felt, this way, again, not being evaluative in any way, and I think I said this to you guys last week or 2 weeks ago, that the protests are basically going to provide an experiment for how COVID spreads. Now, this, to be honest, you know what I wish they would have done for this thing? Politics completely aside. Test everyone coming in and test everyone coming out, and find out, or a day later, and let's figure this out. Does it spread there or not? And quit arguing about what we think happens. It's the same thing with the protests. So it will be very instructive to find out whether or not that was a super spreader event, like some said it was, or it wasn't. It still just drives me nuts that all of the foibles that have happened so far with how we just dealt with this, the fact that you still don't have a better grasp on how it spreads. You think it's going to spread somewhere a ton, and it doesn't. And then there are these huge hotspots. You don't quite know why they're happening. And I think if you had a better grasp on that, you could really, the fall would look a whole lot different for a variety of reasons.
And the thing that complicates it a little bit, as we're talking with our friend from KLIN, Jack Mitchell, is, we're seeing some states where you're getting a decent jump in cases here over the last couple of weeks. Now, Nebraska and Iowa aren't among them, but Nebraska and Iowa are among, I would dare say, Jack, you might correct me here if I'm a little off, but Nebraska and Iowa are among the more states that are open. I mean, as far as some of the restrictions that have been lessened, we haven't seen the same jumps in Nebraska and Iowa that we have seen in, say, Arizona and Texas. Now, I realize too, we're also dealing with a population that's a lot more spread out in these two states than in those. But the fact that, Nebraska has been open for a while, Iowa has opened even to a greater extent than Nebraska sooner, but we haven't seen those jumps in cases. And to me, that's adding to the confusion level, because while Nebraska has continued to, stretch the bounds of what they're allowing folks to do, we're not quite seeing the same increase in numbers as we're seeing in Arizona, Florida, Texas, etc.
Yeah, I've thought the exact same thing, John. I mean, it's this conversation about how open things are, but that's obviously not the only thing, or maybe even the main thing in some cases, that determines when it pops up. To not have a better idea of why in the heck it is happening in Arizona and Texas and Florida. And of course, that's population density, but you've got other parts of the country that have some population density. And it's not just about openness, because a bunch of the states in the Midwest that are as open, or maybe even more open in some cases, than states that have had breakouts. So that's exactly what I was getting at, John, with the frustration right now, that it still seems like we've been operating in this idea that we really have a grasp on how it spreads and when it spreads and where it spreads. But the reality is we don't. We still don't. Yes, we know generally droplets, that kind of things. But, we underestimated meat packing plants here in this state and around the country. And we can debate why that actually happened. But then I think it's so far looking like maybe we overestimated how much the protests would have an impact on it as well. And so there's just so much unknown about that. And if you had a better idea of that, you could make so many smarter, informed decisions about going to school in the fall and about universities and about sports and about all kinds of different things. But we just don't have it still.
And listen, I'm all for people, having the ability to choose, but I've got to think, and it's hard to measure this because, it's not like there's actual people out there on the streets counting that person's wearing a mask and this one's not, that one's wearing a mask and this one's not. But I've got to think that the wearing of masks does have some impact on this, either positively or negatively. Negatively if you're not, positively if you are. I wish we could get it through to more people how important it is, if you're going to be in clustered areas, to wear a mask, because I do think it helps. Is it perfect? No, but I think it does help. Shouldn't there be, because this kind of leads into the question then, Jack, because the governor was criticized roundly last week for not mandating and saying, hey, you're going to lose, funding, you're going to lose COVID funding if you mandate that you have to wear masks inside of, government places. And this has been roundly criticized across the country. Mike Farron took a side swipe at it last Friday when he was on the show. Isn't it incumbent on us to mandate some of these things? I know we don't like to do that, but I think it would certainly help in try to keep the spread down.
It's almost not, it feels like it's not worth a fight, I think, of doing the mandate. I mean, I talked to the superintendent of the Lincoln Public Schools last week, and they kind of rolled out their plan for LPS. John, I'm sure you know about this, and they're going to require masks. And just from talking to him, it sounds like he is already having all-out battles with parents about that right now. And I think the governor knew probably that there were going to be all-out battles, maybe even legal battles. And I think there's probably a sense, John, that maybe that would be a good idea, but the battles just make it feel like, oh my gosh, it's not worth the hassle at this point. Let's just try and get everyone to, but not mandate it. And I think that's probably happening because there are people who are incredibly passionate. I hear from them every day about masks or about the science, that indicates masks are not safe to wear or they don't help. And it has become this huge cultural flashpoint, unfortunately, and is going to become, it's not going to get smaller, guys, in the next few weeks and months. This no masks fight is going to, it's going to go through the fall, and it's going to get bigger once schools start and once sports starts and universities start. So buckle in and hope you enjoy.
Jack, speaking of sports, what have you made of the testing numbers that have come out from a variety of schools? Because I think it's interesting how some of the time we know where theoretically the positive test came from, like the Kansas State story. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it. Apparently, a lot of guys went to a party, and so it was spread that way. Whereas with Clemson and LSU, LSU, that was at a nightclub, but something like Houston, we don't know for sure yet. Texas, we don't, like what have you made of those, and maybe what it could tell us, if anything, about the football season that theoretically is, just over 2 months away?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's two ways to look at this, Josh, which, first was the gut reaction that I think a lot of people had when these all came one after the other over the course of the last several days. And you're like, this is never going to work. I mean, if this is going to keep coming up every single day, they're never going to have a season. Teams are going to be shutting down and those sorts of things. The other way to look at it is this is exactly how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to nail exactly who's got it, identify exactly who's got it, get them quarantined, everyone. happening. And hopefully the idea as time moves forward, you get a better idea of this, but you've got to have to do that, guys. You've got to have quick tests. And not for college football, at least, that's not going to be completely simple for every school. Houston, Josh, had what happened. What happened is they decided not to test asymptomatic people coming in like they did at, for instance, Nebraska. And then, well, you started to have symptomatic people, and that's how they had their spread, is you had people symptomatic. In order to do this, I think there's a chance that this works, but it depends on mass frequent testing. And I think they're going to be able to do that in Major League Baseball. I think they'll be able to do that in the NBA, maybe in football as well. But it feels like a different animal in college football to be able to do that. And that's my biggest concern. My biggest concern isn't that you're having 8 people pop up now at Kansas State or 4 people at LSU and getting an idea. That's not the problem. It's that you're not going to be able to test enough to identify those people. And then before you know it, it'll be much bigger than something like that.
You almost wonder if, and this might sound crazy, if there are some people inside the halls of college sports that are like, you know what? The more of our guys that go through this and get through it on the other side, if they believe that their immunity has been built up, that they'll be better for it in 2.5 months when the season starts. I wonder if there are people thinking that right now.
Yeah. I think I tweeted something out on Saturday. I said, geez, at this rate, college football will have herd immunity by September. Now,
right.
Tongue in cheek, obviously, but there's a part of that. The other thing you wonder about is, and I know the science behind the antibody testing has kind of been sort of back and forth, and can you believe it? Are they reliable? I wondered if they'd ever consider getting into something like that too. We haven't heard a lot about that with sports, but just find out, hey, do we have people? What percentage of our guys have the antibodies at this point? But yeah, I think what you're saying, John, because it's not herd immunity, but on the other hand, there are probably some who have already had it, especially from certain parts of the country, right? There are some that might have it now, and maybe getting it into certain weeks. If you take the precautions and you find out as soon as they have it, and then you get them quarantined and you let them recover, in theory, when 2 months pass here, you're going to have a better situation. You're going to have a better grasp of how this works, how and when it's spreading. And I do actually think it's going to get better each week as long as you can keep testing.
Jack, kind of like an offshoot question out of all this. Like, do you care who the champion is now in any of these sports? Like, I was thinking about it this morning. If we get these games, I'm just going to be so over the moon excited for games that I just kind of throw away the end of the season. Like, do you care at all who champions are in anything?
I don't care who the NBA champion is anyway, because I don't really have a favorite team. And then in baseball, I happen to cheer for a team who I thought had no shot. And each time the season gets weirder, they've got more of a slight chance of a shot as well. Yeah. So I haven't really thought of it that way, Josh. I guess, the best way, because, I guess the best way would be to think about the college football season. And if it were changed, in terms of length, or if it looked really differently. And I think I still, I think as it pertains to who my team is, you still have a desire to see your team. I don't know if it'll feel like it has an asterisk with it, or if it feels, 75% as exciting. But yeah, for the time being, yeah, but I generally, the NBA season is probably the best example, and that'll be here first. I'm not sure that I care that much who the champion is anyway, and that not outside of having a team, but I am certainly, I'll tell you what though, Josh, once July 31st hits and those games are on again, I'm really excited. Steelers have in the month of April when it actually, or March when it actually would have been happening.
Well, we have no new baseball information, at the moment.
Yeah,
though.
nothing. It's been quiet for like 2 days.
Let's see.
Oh my gosh!
I'm just trying to read a tweet here. Let's see.
Sports Flash.
Well, Jim Bowden, former GM who now works for Sirius XM Radio, says that at 5:00, I'm assuming he's referring to Eastern time, so it'd be 4:00 our time, is voting on the 60-game full prorated salaries, no salary guarantee in the event the games are not played, $25 million minimum playoff pool. If fewer than 50 games are played, then 2021, we extend the playoffs and the DH is removed. That's apparently what they're voting on now. I don't know if anything's going to come of that or not.
The players are negotiating against themselves. It's the number one rule.
I know.
In negotiating is that you don't counter your own offer, which is what the owners are asking them to do. So I don't know. I mean, I still doubt that they're going to accept this. You just, in principle, in a negotiation, you don't do that. When someone digs in, you say, at least when I was practicing law, that's the point you say, well, I guess we're going to trial because we're at a stalemate. And I guess this is a little different because the owners still have the opportunity to maybe unilaterally put that in and the grievance. But guys, the thing that still drives me most nuts out of this whole thing, and even if they were to get something done in the next 2 days, is the lack of recognition of the importance there is of getting the season started in as much of July as possible.
Mhm.
I still think it is going to feel so different if you get started in August or even have a week of July. Once you get into August and you have the NBA going and potentially football going. Now, football's called off. If football doesn't happen, this is moot. This is different. But once you get into August, baseball is going to seem completely, the value of baseball in July this year is 10 times the value of baseball in August.
Yeah.
And I think that's putting it conservatively. And if they got something done today, if I were the commissioner, having a 2-week spring training, or we're playing, or we're even playing spring training games that are exhibitions at this point and getting them going. The lack of, pushing it back from the 19th now to the 26th, which I heard was the latest plan. They're at spring training facilities anyway. I mean, find a way to get on the field by July 15th at the latest, and it would reap a ton of the issues that have gone on, because you would just absolutely own the munching that month, and you have so many people tuning in that will just, I think it's 1/10 the impact.
The visual of the NBA and the NHL possibly being back either at the same
NHL,
time
yeah.
or before Major League Baseball completely obliterates any positive impact having Major League Baseball back would feel like. And I realize you want to get your seasons in anyway, and you want to play whatever you can for, the television money. But from a PR perspective, this thing has been so poorly managed that the only thing that can save it right now is if they can somehow get some games on
and soon
prior to everybody else.
Yeah.
And just give us something in the month of July. Because other than that, we're going through the whole month of July with,
golf,
the
NASCAR
and UFC and soccer. Yeah. And that's it.
Yay!
Reverse pyramid.
By the way, does the reverse pyramid also include the Ryder Cup? Because the Ryder Cup has apparently been postponed until 2021.
Guess what? No kidding at all. My favorite golf event to watch. I love team golf so much more than individual golf. I'm not even kidding about that. I'll watch it people are. It's just a way. I'd rather watch that over the Masters any day. And I understand people think that's a terrible take, but that's how I feel.
I'm just more laughing at, once again, the thing that Jack wants back. He doesn't even get like the version of golf that he wants. He's, he has to do that until 2021. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. Right. Okay, so once again, college football is at the top. Then is it college basketball, and then the NFL? What's your ranking? Basically, so I know what sports we're definitely not getting.
I think,
and where's curling?
Just how much I like the sport in terms of the general sport. It's a little different depending on if I'm focusing on my team. But if it was just watching the sport in general, college football 1, NFL 2, college basketball 3, baseball 4.
Okay. But and then if you include your team, where would you go if you include your teams?
Just in terms that I feel for watching the team, it would probably go, I'd drop the NFL down because I don't really have a real strong NFL team. So it'd probably be college football, college basketball, baseball.
Okay.
Greg and Lincoln wants to know if we can get Jack some fiber service.
Yes, we do.
Jack's internet's been barfing in and out. By the way,
has it? Sorry, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Is that a new hat? I don't recall you seeing you in a Wyoming Cowboy hat before.
So I have the Cowboys hat on because last July I went on a father-son roughing it hiking trip up in the.
Oh, that's right. Yes, this is the one where he was worried about getting
little cow.
Yeah, you were worried about getting eaten by bears.
Oh, yeah. We got eaten by mosquitoes instead, and we had a tent that I forgot the poles to the tent. That's a great story sometime. But anyway, since the little Wyoming cowboy symbol is like, it's not just the university, it's the whole state, which, by the way, Nebraska should do that. They should have a symbol that the whole state embraces and is used by the university. Nonetheless, I had to get something that, and I don't, I normally don't wear other colleges' hat, but we went and visited the stadium on the way back. And so I thought, hey, I don't have a brown and yellow hat. I'll probably never have a chance to get a brown and yellow hat. So I got it.
So you say we should get a symbol that the entire state should unify behind. How about this one? How about Steve Peterson? We can
listen. Oh my
put
gosh.
his head on a blue flag, and there it is. There's the new state flag of Nebraska.
If somehow the governor names me into the legislature, because I'm never running, but if the governor names me in, my priority bill is going to be getting a new state flag that is not a seal, that is basically invisible on a flag. Whoever put that.
I think we need to say goodbye to Jack.
We're just begging
seal
for-
on there for days.
Yeah.
So
yeah, your internet keeps crapping out on us. So
crap.
You get too
Sorry.
animated and it freaks out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, can't deal with it.
yeah,
It's
internet.
the government.
Not a fan.
Too much
All right.
energy.
Well, it was a good conversation while it lasted. Thank you, Jack.
Bye,
Appreciate
Jack.
Sorry. All right.
Jack.
It's all right. Yeah, there he is, Jack Mitchell with KLIN.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back real quick.
You don't like this idea? How about
I didn't hate it.
How about
you
the
imagine that-
Huskers script?
Oh, Stibbs. What an idea. Stibbs getting it done.
I'm moving to Canada if that happens.
Nice.
I mean, look at that handsome face.
Handsome.
Steve Peterson. Hi.
You going to do the voice live, the vision live?
Well, I should be on the flag. Look at me. All hail the vision.
I'm actually kind of surprised
for the state.
that he didn't try to do that when he was the athletic director.
He
That
probably
seems
did.
like a Steve Peterson thing to do. Going back real fast. We're up against it. I do have a baseball take.
Baseball.
I got a baseball take that I can get to.
All right. Baseball take and more. Thank you for joining us in the stream. Steve Sipple will probably not be on the YouTube.
What? He's
today
not?
Again. Yeah. Giving up on it.
Old's gonna old.
And Max Olson will join us later.
Nice.
And we are going to have hits, misses, and guys.
Oh.
We are going to decide on JD Spielman.
Mm-hmm. I look forward to that discussion.
It's going to be an interesting conversation.
Mhm.
Interesting conversation. Back with more in a minute on 1620 The Zone.